So, hello, this is Myron, and today we're talking about instant entity conveyor. So what is an instant entity conveyor? You can see one right here. Right here we have a ghast, okay? And here we have a giant piston contraption, and if I flick this lever here, then this ghast will be instantly transported to the end of this giant piston contraption. So all these pistons fire in the same game tick, and this ghast travels over here to the end in a single game tick. That's what an instant entity conveyor is. And in this video I will explain how these things work. So in this video we will talk about 7 things. We will first talk about the fact that pistons push entities, then we will talk about the piston entity push limit, then we will talk about a trick which BLDHF found, which allows you to circumvent the push limit. We will talk about block 36 no clipping behavior, and when using these behaviors we will be able to build instant entity conveyors that work in all versions from 1.12 and all the recent versions. But then we will also find out about another technique which I call voxel alignment, but which some other people call floating alignment. And with this technique we can make much more powerful instant entity conveyors in 1.13 plus also. Yeah, that's what this video will be about. So what happens when a piston pushes an entity? So first thing you need to understand is that there's something called block 36, which is like the moving piston block. And if a piston pushes a block in the block event phase, what it does, it sets a block 36. So if there was a piston here and it pushes this iron block, then what it will do, it will create a block 36, one block to the right of this iron block. And there will be a block 36 hitbox, and this block 36 hitbox will be entirely outside of the actual block 36. So the block 36 is on the right over here, but the hitbox of the block 36 is still in the old position where the iron block used to be. So this happens in the block event phase when the piston pushes the block. And then after the block event phase, we eventually get to the tile entity phase, and in the tile entity phase, the block 36 gets processed. And when the block 36 gets processed, what it will do, it will move the hitbox one half block closer to the destination position. So in the tile entity phase, the block 36 hitbox will move half a block, and if there are any entities colliding with a hitbox, then these entities will get pushed 0.51 blocks in the direction in which the block 36 hitbox was traveling, and the entity will then be placed in front of this block 36 hitbox here. That's what happens when pistons push entities. And then in the second game tick the same thing happens again, because in the first game tick it travels the first half block, then in the second game tick it travels the second half block. Then at the end of the second game tick it will actually convert itself back to an iron block, and then the piston movement is finished after 2 game ticks. Now it is possible to push one entity multiple times in a single game tick. For example, right here I have an armor stand right here, and this piston pushes the armor stand to the right, and this one pushes this back here. And if I activate them, then both pistons will actually push the armor stand at the same time. Now if you do this, you need to be very careful with the update order, that you do the update order correctly, because if you do the update order incorrectly, then it can happen that the armor stand gets stuck like this. So what is the difference here? So in this first case, the update order is in such a way that first this piston extends and then this piston extends, because the tile tick priority of repeaters comes earlier than is lower than that of comparators. So repeaters come before comparators, so this piston will extend before this piston. What this means is that first this armor stand will travel half a block in this direction over here, like it will be between these 2 blocks, and then the block 36 from this piston will push the armor stand over here, and this will also happen again in the next game tick. While over here the update order is different. What will happen here is that first this piston extends and puts a block 36 hitbox half over here, like there will be a hitbox between these 2 blocks, and then when this piston tries to push the armor stand over, then the armor stand won't be able to enter this block, because there will already be a hitbox here which prevents the armor stand from entering this block. So you need to be very careful with update order if you want to do any kind of contraption where you push an entity multiple times in a single game tick. Now every entity has a push limit variable, and that push limit variable gets reset to 0 once per game tick. But every time a piston pushes the entity, the variable will get increased by the amount, by the distance which the piston tried to push the entity. And if the variable goes above 0.51 or below minus 0.51, then it will get capped off at that, and then the entity can't get pushed further than that. And this is called the piston entity push limit. Every entity has a variable which tracks how far have pistons pushed it in this game tick. It will not go further than 0.51 blocks in one game tick. So here we have a nice PowerPoint slide. So if you have multiple block 36 pushing an entity in the same direction, because there's a push limit variable for every direction, then what will happen is the first block 36, when it gets processed, it will be able to push the entity along. But when the second block 36 tries to push the entity, it will not be able to push the entity because the entity already has a push limit variable of 0.51. And at that point, the next block 36 can no longer push the entity. So here's a contraption which shows the entity push limit. So right here we have this armor stand on top of this cobble wall. And what we will do in this contraption, we first push the armor stand up half a block with this cobble wall, when you push it over, and then we try to push it up half a block again. And this will now fail because we are trying to push it up twice in a single game tick, and it cannot do that. So it doesn't get put on top of a block like we might expect, but it rather gets stuck in the block, because after it has been pushed up by the wall, it cannot be pushed up by the iron block again because of a push limit variable. But there's a trick which was discovered by BLDHF, which allows you to circumvent this push limit variable. So this relies on two observations. Firstly, if a piston pushes an entity against a wall, then the push limit variable will be increased even though the entity does not actually get pushed. So like if you push an entity against a wall, it will not actually get pushed because you can't push it through the wall. But the push limit variable does not know about the wall, it only cares about how much the piston tried to push it. And the second observation which is important is that if you push an entity forward and then push it back again, then the piston push limit variable also gets reset again, because the distance that you try to push it back, that gets subtracted again from the push limit variable. Now if you combine these two observations, then you find a way to circumvent the push limit. Namely, what you can do, you can push it forward with a piston, and then you can push it backwards against a wall in an unsuccessful way. When the push limit variable will be reset, even though the entity did already get pushed forward, and then you can push it forward a second time. So here's like a PowerPoint slide for that. So here we have a creeper, and it's stuck in the block 36 hitboxes of like 3 different block 36. And if the first block 36 gets processed, the creeper gets pushed forward, and the push limit variable gets set to 0.51. So it can't be pushed more to the right anymore. However, if we now use a different block 36 which moves to the left, and which intersects the creeper, then the push limit variable will get reset to 0. Now, usually the creeper would get moved to the left again, but if there's also a wall here, then the creeper would not get moved, but the push limit variable would still get reset to 0, and then we would be able to push the creeper again in the same game tick. And that is the trick which BLDHF found. Now, I previously showed that if you have an armor stand here on top of this wall and you try to push it up twice, it doesn't work. However, BLDHF found out that if you push the armor stand downwards in between all of this, then it works. So for example, here we have the same contraption as over there, with the only difference we added another piston up here, which will push this iron block downwards. So what will happen in here is first the cobble wall will push the armor stand up by half a block. Then the armor stand will get pushed downwards by this block. This will be completely unsuccessful because there's a wall hitbox directly below the armor stand, so the armor stand will not actually get pushed down, but this piston will try to push the armor stand down, and this will decrement the push limit variable of the armor stand, so it gets back to 0. And then we will push the armor stand over here, and then we can push it up again. So we can push up the armor stand 2 times in a single game tick if we simply have a piston pushing it in the opposite direction, which fails because there's a wall. Now there's one more trick which we need to talk about, and that is the no clipping behavior of block 36. Namely, if a block 36 pushes an entity, then during this movement the entity will ignore all hitboxes of block 36 which are also moving in the same direction. So if you have 2 block 36 which are moving right, and one of the block 36 is pushing an entity into the hitbox of the other block 36, then the entity can just simply clip into the block 36 hitbox, even if it would usually not be able to enter this hitbox. So if you have a creeper here in front of a block 36 hitbox, and a block 36 moving right pushes the creeper into this hitbox, then it can just clip into it. And this is pretty much the only trick which BLDHF didn't know about, and that's the only reason why he didn't make it in entity conveyors. So right here we have a contraption which demonstrates the no clipping behavior of block 36. So right here we have a piston, and if we activate this piston, then like this stair down here and this stair up here will both turn into block 36. But because of the update order of this limestone structure, this block 36 of this stair down here will move first, and this one will move later. So what happens is that first the stair moves over by half a block, so it will move in the middle of these 2 blocks, so the stair will be in between here and here. And then it will try to move this armor stand also over by half a block so that it's standing like right in front of here basically. But there's a problem because right here there will be a hitbox of this stair right here of a block 36, and usually this would prevent the armor stand from getting through, and then the armor stand would just stay where it is even though the stair underneath it gets pushed forward. So without the no clipping behavior of block 36, the armor stand would fall out of this contraption basically. But since there is no clipping behavior, this armor stand can be moved forward here, and then it will stay inside the contraption even though there was a hitbox here when this block 36 got processed. And this is much of a problem because later in the game tick this block 36 also gets processed and then moves out of the way. So this armor stand stays in this contraption, and this is quite remarkable because this only happens because of a combination of block 36 no clipping behavior and the push limit variable, that the armor stand stays in the contraption instead of like falling out here. That's the no clipping behavior, and the push limit variable is also required to prevent the armor stand from falling out in front of here. Like only if those two behaviors are combined can you actually get the armor stand to stay here in the middle. Again, we can see DHF's trick here if we add another piston which pushes in the other direction. So here we have the same structure as before, except we have another piston which will push the armor stand back to the right, and this will be completely unsuccessful because there will be the stair hitbox right behind the armor stand. But because we have a piston pushing the armor stand right, it will reset the push limit variable, and then the armor stand will fall out in front of here. So if I flick this lever right here, then the armor stand will fall out in front of here. Because this piston reset the push limit variable, and then this armor stand got pushed both by this stair down here, but it also got pushed by this stair up here. So the armor stand got pushed twice because this stair pushed this armor stand into the hitbox of this stair up here, and then when this stair got processed for block 36, it pushed the armor stand again because in between this piston activated and reset the push limit variable. Actually, this is a bit more interesting. I just noticed the explanation is slightly inaccurate because we first push the armor stand back and then we push it forward twice. Because like if we push it back, then the push limit variable gets set to minus 0.51, and then we can actually push it forward twice in a row without having to reset it in between. Yeah, that's what happens in this contraption. But the basic gist is the same thing. So we can use BLDHF's trick to make the armor stand drop out in front of here because it gets pushed twice. And this is the basic principle behind instant entity conveyors. So let's now actually explain how this instant entity conveyor works. So right here we have a command block for resummoning the ghast, which summons the ghast somewhere in here. And there are these blue blocks and these stairs, which all will push the ghast forward. And there are these orange stained glass blocks which push the ghast backwards. So these orange blocks are all for resetting the push limit variable so we can push it forwards further. Okay, and the way this works is we will first push the ghast backwards, but we will push it against a wall here so it can't actually get pushed back, and this will set the push limit variable of the ghast to minus 0.51, and once the push limit variable is at minus 0.51 you can push the ghast forward twice before you have to push it back again. Okay, and when after we have set the push limit variable to minus 0.51, we will push the ghast forward twice. Namely, we will push it forward using both a stair and a normal block. And the stairs are just here because they have this convenient 0.5 block hitbox. That's what the stairs are for. And we will push the ghast forward. And when we push it forward, like these two blocks will already have moved backwards and will have clipped into the block into the hitbox of the ghast when they moved backwards because the ghast couldn't move back. And after these blocks, there aren't any other hitboxes in the way of the ghast, so we can actually move the ghast an entire block forward. And after that, he will align with these orange stained glass blocks here. And the ghast will be right in front of these orange stained glass blocks. And then the second thing is that these two orange stained glass blocks will move backwards, but when they move backwards, they will again have like these stair hitboxes or other block hitboxes right behind them. So these two orange stained glass blocks will not manage to push the ghast backwards, but since it's 2 block 36, they will reduce the push limit variable by 1.02. So the push limit variable, which was at plus 0.51 will again be at minus 0.51, and this means we can then again push the gas forward twice, and then we will activate, we will push this blue stained glass and this stair forward. They will push the gas again one entire block forward, and there will be nothing in the way of the gas, because the only thing in the way that could be in the way would be either orange stained glass blocks or like these blue stained glass blocks and stairs. But these blue stained glass blocks and stairs are block 36, which move in the same direction as the blue stained glass. So these will be ignored because of the no clipping behavior. The only thing you need to worry about are the hitboxes of this orange stained glass. There will, after these have moved back, there will be nothing in the way for the gas to be pushed against this one, and you just repeat this in a loop. So you always push the gas one block forward when the push limit variable is at plus 0.51. Then you have two block 36 which try to push it backwards, but which completely fail because of all the other block 36 which are moving forward in the way. And when the push limit variable is again at minus 0.51, and you can repeat this infinitely, and then the gas gets pushed forward infinitely, and then we can just activate this lever, and then the gas will go all the way over here. Yeah, and that's everything you can do in 1.12 basically. This only works well in 1.12 for entities whose hitboxes is an exact multiple of 0.5, like for example gas or armor stand. It sadly doesn't really work for minecarts and TNTs in 1.12. So with all these tricks we can now make instant entity conveyors for entities which are sufficiently large that they can intersect a lot of hitboxes at once and whose hitbox width is a multiple of 0.5. In 1.12 it is very difficult to make an instant entity conveyors for minecarts because minecarts are 0.98 blocks wide, and if you use some block 36 to push them 0.51 blocks forward and then have a block right in front of them, then there will be a 0.01 block gap between the minecart and the block which is pushing them backwards again. So if you then use this block to push them backwards, then they will actually not be pushed 0.51 blocks backward, but only 0.5 blocks backwards, and when the push limit variable does not get reset to 0, it only gets reset to 0.01, and if you then repeat this whole process, then the push limit variable will be at 0.02, and it will increase more and more, and eventually the minecart gets stuck because it cannot be pushed far enough anymore to actually be in front of hitboxes which push it forward. So in 1.12 it's very difficult to make instant minecart conveyors because they are only 0.98 blocks wide, and if they were like 0.99 blocks or 1 block wide, then it would be a lot easier. Yeah, that's everything for 1.12. We now come to a behavior which only works in more recent versions, which it does not work in 1.12, it only works in 1.13 and every version after that. And namely, it's possible to align an entity against a wall in such a way that the entity does not really collide with the wall, but if you push a wall, the entity gets pushed along with the wall. So right here we have a creeper, and the creeper can get pushed in this direction to the right without being stopped by these iron blocks down here, but if you push the iron blocks, the creeper gets pushed along. And this is something which some people call float alignment, in which I will call voxel alignment, because Earth Computer says that float alignment is a terrible name, and it's caused by voxel shapes which were introduced in 1.13, so we will call it voxel alignment. And this is a behavior which has been already known for several years on technical Minecraft discords, but it wasn't published when it was initially discovered, so nobody has any idea who actually discovered it, so credits go to absolutely no one. You can credit Wasteworks if you want. That's that. Initially when XCOM published a video about instant entity conveyors, he claimed in the video description that it works in all versions from 1.9 onwards, and this is wrong because the initial entity conveyors which we built used this voxel alignment, and that does not work in 1.12. Like in 1.12 we only have entity conveyors for gas, and if you want you can build one for armor stands. But the horse instant entity conveyors in XCOM's video does not work in 1.12. We can credit Kaylee for discovering that voxel alignment does not work in 1.12 because she was the first one who figured out that these entity conveyors do not work. Okay, so let's quickly explain voxel shape alignment. So suppose we have a minecart right here. And we have some blocks next to it. Then usually if you push these blocks, it doesn't push the minecart because it doesn't intersect both blocks or anything. So, however, if you quickly remove those blocks and give a geotick pulse to a piston right next to the minecart, so like this. Then it will slightly move the minecart over to the right, and then it will be voxel aligned. So you can still place blocks here because the minecart is still not actually intersecting those blocks, but it is close enough to those blocks that if you push those blocks, it pushes the minecart. So this minecart gets pushed by these blocks, even though it's not intersecting those blocks. Like I can still push this minecart independently of those blocks because it doesn't intersect those. But if I push those blocks, the minecart gets pushed along with those blocks, and that's this voxel alignment or float alignment, how people call it. And this is something which only exists in 1.13 and it does not exist in 1.12. So using all these tricks, we can now make instant entity conveyors for also a lot of other entities with weird hitbox sizes in 1.13 plus. And the idea is that you voxel align the entity against the blocks moving backwards, so that whenever one of the backwards moving block moves, it moves the entity along with it. But it doesn't prevent the entity from being pushed forward. And we also have the entity inside of a lot of block 36 moving forwards, and these block 36 moving forwards prevent the entity from ever being pushed backwards. So whenever we are pushing a block backwards, it tries to take the entity with it, but it can't because it's in front of hitboxes moving forward, so it doesn't actually move, but the push limit flag gets reduced by it. So we have a voxel, we have an entity voxel aligned against blocks moving in the opposite direction. And blocks moving in the opposite direction, always we set the push limit variable, and the blocks moving forward always push the entity forward. And when the entity gets pushed forward, it doesn't collide with anything because the blocks moving backwards are only voxel aligned and don't interfere, and the blocks moving forward, it can just no clip into them. And that's the basic idea behind instant entity conveyors in 1.13 plus. So, but using this voxel shape alignment, we can make instant entity conveyors in 1.13. The first one was by XCOM, Puncher2, To Know To Name, and Myron, with myself. There was an instant entity conveyor for horses, and the video has no world downloads, so if you want to get it, good luck. Maybe you can find it on some Discord. Then there was an instant entity conveyors which works for TNT and minecarts and also other smaller blocks. And this relies on the 1.5 tall hitboxes of fences. And then there were a lot of other instant entity conveyors, and those are spread over various private discords. Like the Bismuth Discord has a private instant entity conveyor channel, which I can give you access to. But a good starting point to find these instant entity conveyors is the Technical Minecraft Archive, the entity transport chat. So this is one example of a modern instant entity conveyors, which you can find on the Discord. This is a bidirectional instant minecart conveyor by Shinji. So to use it, you need to put dispensers in here and then press the button, and then the minecart will go over here and it will be float aligned correctly. And when the minecart is down here, and it's on top of a campfire because it needs to be so far low that the hitboxes of these fence gates intersect with the minecart, but also so high up that it intersects with these trapdoors up here. So it's geometrically quite difficult, but a campfire does the job. And if you're then in this minecart and you press this node block right here, then it instantly transports you to the other side of the contraption. So we were over here, but after pressing it, we are over here. And the cool thing about the entity conveyor is that it's bidirectional. So if you press this node block right here, then the minecart gets sent back all the way over here. And this is this is one of the more advanced contraptions which you can build with these principles which we have here. And you can find various instant entity conveyors on the Discord if you look on the Technical Minecraft Archive in the entity conveyor chat. And finally, some disclaimers. In some versions, you might need to load all chunks for which your entity travels ahead of time, because it doesn't instantly chunk load in newer versions or something. And also in some other versions, when you push an entity or a chunk boundary, it might not immediately get registered in the new chunk, and then after a few more blocks, the Piston block 36 might no longer find the entity because it's not registered. And then in both versions, the speed of these instant conveyors is effectively limited to 320 blocks per second, unless you use other additional tricks, which I don't really know well. And I don't know in which version exactly what limitations you have, because these can change from version to version, so I will not go into this stuff. This is something you have to figure out yourself. And that's basically everything for this video.